I want you to look at your bank account. Really look at it. Do you feel safe? Or do you feel like no matter how hard you work, no matter how many side hustles you start, and no matter how much you try to save, you are slowly slipping backwards? If you feel this way, I need you to know something important. You are not crazy. You are not bad with money. And you are certainly not alone. You are living through a historical economic event that economists are terrified to name. They call it a soft landing. They call it a market correction. They call it transitory inflation. But if you look at the raw math, the math they don't show you on the evening news, we are in the middle of a silent depression. Let's go back in time for a moment. Picture the year 1990. In 1990, earning $100,000 a year didn't just make you comfortable, it made you rich. It was a status symbol. It meant a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, 2 new cars in the driveway, fully funded retirement accounts, and annual vacations to Europe. One income could support a family of 4 with ease. Now, snap back to today. You earn the same $100,000. But today, in most major cities like New York, London, Toronto, or Sydney, that 6-figure salary doesn't make you a king. It makes you barely middle class. After taxes, exorbitant rent, student loan payments, and groceries that cost double what they did 5 years ago, you might be left with nothing at the end of the month. You are high income, but you are cash poor. So here is the mystery we are going to solve in the next 12 minutes. Who killed the value of your money? Was it the government? Was it corporate greed? Or was it something inside your own psychology? To understand the crime, we have to look at the evidence. And the first piece of evidence is a specific date in history, August 15th, 1971. This is the day the rules of the game were changed without your permission. Before 1971, money was tied to gold. There was a physical limit to how much the government could print. If they wanted to spend more, they had to tax you more. It was honest. But in 1971, the link between the dollar and gold was severed. Money became fiat, a fancy word that means let it be done. The dollar became paper backed by nothing but promises. This handed the government a magical credit card with no limit. And like anyone with an unlimited credit card, they started spending. But here's the catch. When they print money, they don't create value. They only dilute the money you already worked for. Imagine you're building a house, but every night while you sleep, someone sneaks in and shrinks your ruler by 1 millimeter. You measure the next day and everything seems fine. But by the end of the year, your house is crooked. The walls are collapsing and you don't know why. This is exactly what has happened to the dollar. The ruler we use to measure wealth has been shrinking for 50 years. Now, you might ask, if the dollar is losing value, why doesn't the government admit it? Because they have a cover-up story. It's called the CPI, or Consumer Price Index. The CPI is the government's official tool for measuring inflation. But here's the secret. They treat the economy like a video game where they can change the difficulty settings whenever they want to make the numbers look better. They use tricks to hide the truth from you. The first trick is called substitution. If the price of steak goes up by 50%, the government assumes you will stop buying steak and start buying hamburger meat. So they swap steak for hamburger in their inflation calculation. If hamburgers get too expensive, they swap it for chicken. They say, look, your food costs didn't go up, but they ignore the fact that your standard of living went down. You are eating worse food just to survive, but the spreadsheet says you're fine. The second trick is hedonics. This is where they claim that because your phone has a better camera than it did 5 years ago, the phone is technically cheaper relative to its quality. They use this mathematical gymnastics to lower the inflation number. But you can't eat pixels. You can't live inside a better camera resolution. They tell you, look, televisions are cheaper, toys are cheaper, digital subscriptions are cheap. But the things you actually need to survive as a human being, housing, healthcare, and education have skyrocketed. Let's look at the housing trap. In the 1950s, the average home cost just over 2 times the average annual salary. A factory worker with a high school diploma could buy a home and support a family with a single income. Today, The average home costs 8 times, 10 times, or in some areas, 15 times the average salary. The math has fundamentally broken. This is the difference between cheap goods and expensive assets. The system floods you with cheap plastic junk from overseas to keep you distracted, while the assets that actually build generational wealth become impossible to buy. But wait, it gets worse. Let's look at the productivity gap. Since the 1970s, technology has made us incredibly efficient. Computers, the internet, AI, we are working faster and smarter than any generation in history. Worker productivity has gone up by nearly 60% since 1979. Logically, if you produce 60% more value, you should get paid 60% more, right? Wrong. While productivity skyrocketed, wages barely moved. In fact, when adjusted for real inflation, wages have stagnated or dropped. So where did all that extra money go? It went to the shareholders. It went to the CEOs. It went to the asset owners. This brings us to the most dangerous villain in our story, the Cantillon Effect. When the government prints trillions of dollars, like they did in 2008 and again in 2020, that money doesn't just appear in your mailbox. It enters the system at the top. It goes to the big banks, the hedge funds, and the mega corporations first. These insiders get the money while it still has value. They use it to buy up the real assets, houses, stocks, gold, and land. By the time that new money trickles down to you in the form of a wage increase, the damage is already done. The prices of those houses and stocks have already doubled because the rich bought them all. You are getting the crumbs while they ate the whole cake. You are literally paying for their free money through higher prices at the gas pump and the grocery store. This economic pressure forces us into the next trap, the debt illusion. How do people survive if wages are low and costs are high? They borrow. We have replaced income with credit. In the 1980s, credit cards were a convenience. Today, they're a survival tool. Total household debt has hit record highs. People are using Visa and MasterCard to buy eggs and milk. This masks the depression. If you walk through a shopping mall, it looks like everyone is rich. They're wearing designer clothes, holding expensive lattes, but if you could see their bank statements, you would see a different story. You would see minimum payments, high interest rates, and quiet desperation. The system relies on you being in debt. A person in debt is obedient. A person in debt is afraid to lose their job, so they don't ask for raises. They don't take risks. They keep the machine running. And the biggest debt trap of all is education. We told an entire generation, go to university, get a degree, it's the ticket to the middle class. So millions of young people took out massive loans, trusting the system. But the degree didn't inflate in value. Only the cost did. Tuition costs have risen faster than almost anything else in the economy. Now we have graduates with $50,000 or $100,000 in debt entering a job market where wages haven't kept up. They're starting the race with a heavy anchor tied to their ankles. This delays homeownership. It delays marriage. It delays having children. The silent depression is literally reshaping the biology of our society. This leads to a new reality that looks a lot like feudalism. In the Middle Ages, you had lords who owned the land and serfs who worked the land but owned nothing. Are we really that different today? Welcome to the subscription economy. You don't own your movies anymore, you pay Netflix. You don't own your music, you pay Spotify. You don't own your software, you pay Adobe a monthly fee. Companies like BlackRock are buying up single-family homes by the thousands to turn them into rentals. The goal of the modern economy is to turn you into a permanent renter, to ensure you own nothing and pay for everything forever. This is the ultimate transfer of wealth. A slow monthly siphon from your pocket to theirs. The bridge to the middle class, home ownership and asset accumulation, is being burned down. But here's the twist. It's not just the economy's fault. Part of the silent depression is psychological, and this is the part you can control. Even if you make good money, you might still feel broke. Why? Because of the lifestyle creep and the Diderot effect.
Denis Diderot was a French philosopher in the 1700s. He lived a simple life until he was gifted a beautiful scarlet robe. But once he put it on, he realized his old furniture looked ugly compared to the magnificent robe. So he replaced the furniture, then the rugs, then the paintings. He ended up in debt, all because of one robe. We are all Diderot, but our scarlet robe is Instagram. Our scarlet robe is the algorithm. In the 1990s, you only compared yourself to your neighbor Bob. Bob drove a Ford. You drove a Chevy. You were happy. Today, you compare yourself to a 19-year-old crypto millionaire in Dubai. You compare yourself to an influencer on a yacht. You see their highlights, their vacations, their cars. Our baseline for normal has become extraordinary. This triggers a dopamine trap in your brain. You feel the need to signal your status. You buy the Tesla not because you need it, but to show you aren't falling behind. You buy the expensive watch, the designer clothes, the overpriced omakase dinner. This creates a permanent psychological recession. You feel poor, not because you lack food, but because you lack status. You are running on a hedonic treadmill, running faster and faster, just to stay in the same place. The system spends billions of dollars on advertising to make sure you never feel enough, because if you felt enough, you would stop spending and the economy would collapse. So, we have a broken monetary system, rampant asset inflation, a debt trap, and a psychological war for your wallet. Is there a way out? Yes, but it requires you to stop playing their game. You need to become finance conscious. You need to become a sovereign individual. Here is your escape plan. Step 1. Stop saving in cash. This is the hardest pill to swallow because we were taught that cash is king. But in a silent depression, cash is trash. Cash is a melting ice cube. If you keep your life savings in a bank account earning 0.1% interest while real inflation is 8%, you are setting your hard work on fire. You are the victim of the theft we talked about earlier. You need a liquidity buffer for emergencies, yes, but you cannot store your wealth in fiat currency. Step 2. Become an owner, not a renter. You must own assets that inflate with the money supply. When the government prints money, the value of the dollar goes down, but the price of scarce assets goes up. Stocks involve owning a piece of a company that raises its prices to match inflation. Real estate involves owning land that there aren't making any more of. Bitcoin involves owning a digital network with a fixed supply that no politician can print more of. You need to be on the side of the equation that benefits from the money printing, not the side that gets crushed by it. Step 3. Opt out of the status game. You must kill the Diderot effect. Recognize that luxury is just a tax on your insecurity. The system wants you to spend your money on things that lose value, cars, clothes, gadgets, so that you have to keep working to buy more. Real wealth isn't the car you drive. It's the freedom to wake up and do whatever you want. It is having FU money. The moment you stop trying to impress strangers on the internet, your cost of living drops and your happiness rises. Step 4. Audit your personal inflation rate. Forget the government's numbers. Look at your own life. What are your biggest expenses? If it's housing, can you house hack by renting out a room? If it's food, can you buy in bulk? Can you move to a lower cost of living area while keeping your remote job? This is called geo-arbitrage. You need to take control of your own economy because no one is coming to save you. The silent depression is real. The math has changed. The game is significantly harder than it was for your parents. The ladder has been pulled up. But now that you know the rules, you can build your own ladder. You can stop being a victim. You can stop being a serf in the subscription economy. The path out is not easy, but it is simple. Consume less than you earn, invest the difference in hard assets, and ignore the status games that are designed to keep you broke. If you want to understand the psychology behind the money in your pocket, and if you want to learn how to navigate this new economic reality, subscribe to the channel. We are going to deconstruct the system, one video at a time. Thanks for watching.